So I went to the 50th anniversary of hip hop event sponsored by the Mulberry Street Library. What they do is every month they pick an artist to honor and acknowledge them through concert, through trivia, through just like general knowledge. And this year, for the 50th anniversary of hip hop, they did a collection. So it was really hip hop throughout time and just the history of hip hop. Kind of a general overview of what happened at the event was it was definitely more of like a history and paying homage to hip hop. One of like the biggest connections to this class, I would say, is kind of like the introduction and start of hip hop. Obviously, hip hop has been something that's been around for so many years and became popular before I was even like born and thought of, so I never really quite understood / connected with the attachment and like very beginnings of hip hop. However, this experience kind of took you on like a little timeline, and so you saw the very like beginning and how hip hop started and how it's kind of became what it is today, which I just thought was like so fascinating and so interesting to see this like progression play out in more real time. And because it was hosted by the Mulberry Street Library, there was a lot of New Yorkers, and so it was just things that they relate to more. And one person shared their story about how growing up they were actually on like the tour buses that we learned about that like hip hopped throughout the Bronx, and like that was their thing. And that was just something in the class that really stood out to me, because it was just something I was like so fascinated and so gravitated towards. So hearing this man like talk about his experience being a young kid in New York, experiencing almost like the birth of hip hop, was just something that like I will always hold like near and dear to my heart, and just definitely something that like was such a once in a lifetime opportunity for me. Like living in Arizona, going to school in Arizona, I would have never had the opportunity to like talk about and connect and ask questions to these people where hip hop, and specifically like the Bronx native people, like how they experience hip hop now. It was just like a very unique experience. And then also for like the little trivia questions, they asked questions kind of combining the history of hip hop and graffiti and all of these like different aspects that we learned about throughout the course that wasn't necessarily thought of as like hip hop to me, because as I've said before, like hip hop I just associated with rap or music. I didn't realize that there was so much fashion and like just the depth of hip hop. So that was like a really big takeaway for me, and also just something that was like so interesting, like watching and seeing in real time, and just like seeing, you know, kind of like the history of the fashion and like more outside of that aspect, and how it was and how there is that overlap. But like back then, like fashion was like so tied to it, and fashion still is, but just like seeing the difference and like just experiences like that was so like crazy and like just so insightful for me. I think another thing about this event that was so cool is because they would play like videos and talk about it, or they would talk about movies or books, and it definitely wasn't like the cultural experience that I was expecting. Like I didn't going into it, I didn't know if it would be like a lot of songs or like what the event would be, but it was so like just like so educational, and so like we saw movies and clips and books of hip hop and like hip hop artists and all of these things. But something that really I found interesting was they had a video of a break dancer, and they broke down like the break dancing, and they taught about it. And like in class we learned about these things, but like having someone in live time like telling you what this is and like showing live like live demonstrations was just like so insane to me. And like it was just so talking about the golden age of hip hop and where hip hop is now versus then. And they brought in like more current hip-hop artists such as like Nicki Minaj and French Montana, which I thought was also unique because those are individuals that I know more of, and yet like the audience was like less aware of them. And so I thought it was just like interesting to see the difference in the dynamics of like who people I thought were like so popular and so relevant in hip-hop, and how like older generations don't like know them was so interesting. Because like for me, in so many ways, I don't really like, obviously I know like my parents are like, there are people, everyone has their own like generational artists, but I never thought about in hip-hop. Like for me, hip-hop, I just kind of assumed that like everyone knew who like Nicki Minaj was if you were into hip-hop. So like seeing just that divide was interesting to me. But also I think just a really big takeaway was like the togetherness that hip-hop has brought. And like these people, they were from different boroughs or different like life stories, and yet they all came together under hip-hop, and like they were debating which artist was better based off of what borough they were from or starting. And it was just it was such like a fun and like pure experience, and it was just something that I enjoyed so much, and like it was just such a fantastic experience. And I definitely want to go to more events like these, because it was just like leaving, once like the event ended, I left with such a full heart and just like reflection about that and my experience there.
Easy one.
That was the easy one.
Yep, the Bronx. The Boogie Down Bronx is
Okay, so let's see the answer.
This is false. MC actually stands for Masters of Ceremonies. In hip-hop, the term is used to refer to the person who leads and controls the flow of a live performance.
And CD recommendations.
The trivia was also something I super enjoyed, because it had questions such as what does MC stand for, and where hip-hop originated, what borough. Like those questions were questions that we had learned and answered in this course that otherwise I wouldn't have really been able to know. Like I knew that the MC answer was false because of the course where like everyone else chose true, and like it was just like experiences like that were also really like enriched and connected back to what we were learning, because otherwise I don't think I would have ever known that, and like during trivia I would have been super lost. So this course and like kind of trivia, it was both like just a mutual way for me to like really understand what I have learned, if that makes sense, in the way that I was able to learn so much and kind of see the real life application. Even if trivia wasn't the way I thought of it, it just made me more of like a cultured and knowledgeable human being. And I think this like event really helped cement that, and like just really help me become more versed in hip hop and just more aware